Hi, good morning everyone. Welcome to the CIO Institute. Thank you for joining this session alongside our partner iomart on why security should be a boardroom issue. If I could introduce our speaker for today's session, Prescott Brann. Alan is the Director of Business Development at iomart. Please everyone feel free to ask questions via the chat function. But for now, I will hand you over to Alan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alan Prescott Brann. Thank you very much for the introduction there, Paula. I'm the Director of Business Development at iomart. Normally, I look after our business acquisitions and pursuits team and also lead a team of business strategy consultants. So I have one eye on our top and bottom line growth and the other eye focused on our strategic direction. But today, I'm going to talk to you about why security should be a boardroom issue. I should also add from the outset that I'm not a technologist, I'm not a techie, though I am passionate about technology as a business enabler. So I will share with you what we're seeing from our perspective and existing customers up and down the country. And I encourage you to share with me also your collective experiences, along with any adjustments or adaptations that you're making to your working arrangements, so we can reflect on the impact that that's having on our lives and threat landscape, and ultimately on the businesses that we operate or operate within. I should also warn you that there's always a bit of attention-grabbing razzmatazz at the beginning of iomart presentations. So on that note, cue the music. I do love a bit of soul to soul. The irony here, though, with that music is that it was originally intended for a back to work, back to reality talk, highlighting the changing dynamics in the security considerations as we move users back into the office. As it happens, though, we haven't moved users back into the office. Instead, we've gone back into lockdown. So perhaps back to life, back to our current reality, or should I say purgatory of working from home. I am, of course, joking. I love it really. Just checking for eavesdroppers there. I am, of course, at home as I present to you today. So today I'm going to take you through a little bit about iomart for those of you who don't know us, who we are, what we do, who we serve. I'll then do some scene setting on how we as users are working in these interesting times from a people, business and IT security perspective. I'll then dive into the threat landscape and the trends since the pandemic started. A bit on the challenge that lies ahead. It won't be a sales pitch, but I will touch on our own service and how we address the recent changes in working arrangements and the impact that those changes are having on cybersecurity. And really so you can see where we've been focusing our resource and our money at the moment and why security should be a boardroom issue. I'll then finish with some advice, some security goals, if you like, on what you can and should be doing to protect yourselves. So a quick bit about iomart for those of you who don't know us. We're a hybrid cloud managed services provider, leading the charge in enabling businesses to adapt to new ways of working, keeping your staff safe, increasing productivity, whilst protecting businesses and mitigating against the security risks associated with home working. So essentially helping you stay safe, protect your business and save money. And it wouldn't be a presentation, would it, without a few key facts. So yeah, we were founded 20 years ago by a handful of employees at the start of the dot-com boom. Since then, we've grown into a leading provider of managed infrastructure services. We're publicly listed on the London Stock Exchange, delivering year-on-year growth with a strong balance sheet. And we're trusted by over 4,500 organisations to deliver mission-critical services and infrastructure, and more importantly, to keep them secure. We've got lots of different users in the public sector, corporate sector and tech space, from our 13 fully owned UK data centres and globally from our network of 29 international data centres. As our customers can testify, we've achieved this phenomenal growth by investing heavily in our people, our infrastructure and service stack, as you can see here. And that's everything from providing data centre services and connectivity at the bottom, taking organisations on their first steps into the cloud, and away from their premises and into our data centers globally and beyond. And then depending on how far along the cloud journey you already are, up through security, private cloud, virtual desktop, naturally including resilience, data management and cyber recovery services, and then onwards into public cloud and all the way up to providing people, resources, and transformation services for organizations looking to change the way that they deliver and consume technology today. As I've mentioned, right now we're going to focus on what is a massive part of IT delivery today, in what is really an ever evolving landscape of security and protection services, both in terms of protecting yourselves as best you can against the numerous security threats, and also mitigating against data protection compliant risks that sit alongside that. I should also add that iomart are not just a dedicated security player, nor do we pretend to be. But we do have 20 years experience of managing critical cloud infrastructure. And obviously we can't do that without having security in mind. So as individuals, it's not been easy, has it? The challenges of lockdown, the last 9 months of balancing home and work responsibilities and adjusting to this new normal, managing remote teams, the furlough of team members, maintaining a positive outlook by running a morning fit club in your wife's netball dress and a Boris wig that ended up in emergency spinal surgery, true story, and staying composed when your semi-naked partner causes chaos in the background of a Zoom call, also true, but thankfully it wasn't me or my better half that time. Like many, we at iomart moved quickly to remote working. We got 400 staff set up overnight, which was a phenomenal achievement, no mean feat in itself. And we've also been working with both prospective and existing customers up and down the land, as you'd expect, facilitating a huge surge of requirements for remote working and working from home during lockdown, as well as overcoming bandwidth and network challenges for those using on-prem infrastructure that was never intended to be accessed remotely or intended to be accessed that way. We've also seen many businesses rush to remote working, potentially using cloud services, collaboration tools, and network fixes without really having the time to consider the implications properly or do any real due diligence. So we've also seen lots of those tactical decisions made to plug gaps. And it's those short-term fixes, those knee-jerk reactions to lockdown that haven't been properly thought through, that we're currently being asked to help fix. We then got excited, like most of the country, and we thought we were going back into the office. So we've then been busy helping businesses adapt to a work from anywhere model, be that home, remotely, or back into the office. Yay! We've even helped customers repurpose on-prem data centers to create additional office space for safe social distance working, as our customers, like us, also encourage their staff back into the offices. But businesses then had to make a quick U-turn. We all got our own little community chest in the form of a second national lockdown. So not so much a go to jail, but a go back to working from home. So some may say that there are similarities. Do not pass go, or perhaps do not pass the pub, although you may collect a takeaway and continue to do the school run, but for goodness sake, just keep working. And the key priority now, though, is clearly retaining business viability whilst making sure that users are working safely, securely, and cost effectively. Be that saving money by working remotely or saving money and livelihoods by protecting businesses from those security breaches and ransomware attacks. But what effect have these changes or adaptations to our working model, what have they had or are having on our network perimeter and the security landscape today? Well, if we look at the trends since the pandemic, we can see that cyber attacks have increased, some as an opportunistic result of COVID, and some exploiting other vulnerabilities, the obvious dependency that we now have on our online presence. There's also been an 83% increase in spear phishing. Even prior to lockdown, one person in my office even received one from someone pretending to be me. And the perpetrator even tried to move the conversation onto WhatsApp, requesting Amazon vouchers for a fictional customer that I was allegedly about to meet. Unfortunately, a head popped round the door of the meeting room that I was in, saying, "You've got a nerve, Al, get your own vouchers." And I think it was only for the fact that I was in the office in a meeting rather than out and about that thwarted that attempt. Needless to say, the individual concerned was very embarrassed, as they had been duped, despite staff training and awareness, which of course is still the most effective way to combat phishing. But sadly, they are still quite often successful. There's also been a 62% increase in malware attacks, and I'll talk more on a few examples in a mo. and a 21% increase in distributed denial of service attacks at a time when most businesses are dependent on their e-commerce websites. So these are huge increases. You know, there was lots obviously before COVID, but it's the steepness of that rise. It's the gradient, the inflection point since the pandemic that is quite staggering. And it shows how quick cyber criminals are to react and adapt to these opportunities, and how quickly they are to exploit changes in working arrangements. And it's something that we should all be concerned about. So when's it going to end? Well, it's not. I actually robbed this slide from one of my business strategy consultants, as it paints such an accurate picture. So apologies if you've already seen this or you're aware of the Harvey Nash KPMG survey. If you don't know, they created a survey of 400 CIOs globally. In fact, that's where the stats from my previous slide came from. And many in the audience in the session today, you know, could well have been respondents in that survey, as they were keen to gauge what the long-term view post-COVID impact was likely to look like. So on this topic, you know, they polled the question, what proportion of enterprises expected to work predominantly from home post-COVID? And 45% of the respondents believed that between 21 and 50% of enterprises would work predominantly from home. And that 24% even thought that more than half of all enterprises would work predominantly from home, which is a big change, you know, certainly in the way that many organizations have been operating up until now. And so not so great really from commercial office landlords, but it is a great opportunity for cyber criminals who are simply not missing out, you know, as you saw from the increase in phishing, malware, and DDoS attacks in my previous slide. But it's not just about working from home in the pandemic, you know, that's expanding that attack surface. You know, it's all the other changes. COVID hasn't caused it, it's just accelerated it. In fact, almost half of respondents, 47% in that survey, said the pandemic's permanently accelerated their digital transformation and their adoption of emergent technologies. You know, most organizations today have had to evolve and adapt. We live in interesting times. But most people now work from anywhere and workforces are dispersed. But that change was already coming. You know, services and applications are not delivered from office premises just to the office anymore, but they're decentralized now, and they're delivered from, you know, the public cloud, from platform as a service, from SaaS, from data center providers, cloud providers like iomart. But in the main, these services are accessed and consumed typically by people working remotely, which is great in that it keeps staff safe, it keeps businesses running during these difficult times. But this increased flexibility and simplicity in accessing and delivering your applications is also a fantastic opportunity. I'm just going to minimize myself. It's a fantastic opportunity for cyber criminals. Yeah, the attack surface has been expanded. It's been expanded beyond the boundaries of your office. Yeah, and there's also added pressures of managing cost, and we're all under pressure to become leaner and save money and be more efficient in our operations, with, you know, workers often being asked to, you know, use their own devices to access sensitive corporate information. But you know, with that increased flexibility comes that that increased risk, and businesses are having to adapt the way that they work, they adapt their approach to security just to improve their visibility, reduce risk, protect their staff, IT, and intellectual property. And there are lots and lots and lots and lots of threats out there. And they're from, you know, different areas, ranging from phishing attacks that we've mentioned. I mean, according to PwC, these attempts now represent around half of all UK cyber attacks. So they are massively on the up. You've then got disgruntled employees, you know, those with a grievance against your business, those sort of struggling financially that see the opportunity to make a quick buck. And then drive-by downloads, you know, and rogue software. One of my favorites, well, actually not a favorite, that's probably the wrong phrase, but an amusing approach that a third-party security pen testing company used at a previous company that I worked for, essentially their red team, if you like. And one of their techniques was to drop a load of dongles around the business they were working with payroll strictly confidential written on them. And then when they were inserted into the USB port, the file still had to be opened. And they simply called that file, named that file senior management pay. And then within 48 hours, on average, how many do you think were opened as a percentage? wait for it. It always ranged between 90 and 100%, depending on how many they dropped. And that number always amused me because it just tells us a little bit about the human psyche, about the curiosity of the human mind. But obviously a great opportunity for those wanting to spread malware. You then have fairly crude but effective volumetric attacks like the distributed denial of service attacks to take your e-commerce website or other services offline. If you pay them, of course, they might stop. You've then got ransomware and malware. That's been a big one in recent times, over the last sort of 24 months with the recent surge as we've seen. And this poses a challenge to all organizations of all sizes, up and down the scale, small or large, especially those that are easily visible and often in the public eye. But everyone's being targeted by those. You're really looking to make hay out of other people's vulnerabilities. Some of the points on this slide are threats, some are merely roots in, and some are exploits in themselves. But if we move around the dial to the left, we get onto the consequences of what happens if you are breached. Have your documents been stolen? Has data been taken? Is it personal data? Has data been lost? Is it personal information that's been stolen? Is it your IP? Actually, there's another thought. So whether we're in the EU or not, the GDPR or similar applicable data protection law that's likely to be drafted to sit alongside will be enforceable. And as we'll see shortly, the fines are on the rise. And that's why security is so important. And this is the threat landscape we face. It's hugely complex. There are so many ways that attackers can get into your business now. And it's actually quite unfair when you think about it. How many wars in history have been waged, and in order to survive, you have to win every battle. And your attacker only has to win one. It's extremely unfair, but that's what we face. But the one thing you can be certain of is, if you are breached, that the damage could be catastrophic. And unfortunately, it's not just a case of if, it is unfortunately a case of when. So what have these two images got in common? Well, they both cost the same. So a phishing attack can start from £25 per month and go up from there, and similar to the cost of a gym membership. The reward for going to the gym and paying your gym membership might be getting fitter, faster, stronger, or in my case, just fatter. But the reward for cyber criminals can be in the millions. If they execute a successful attack on your network or a malicious breach of your environment, from a relatively low risk, low cost attack, the rewards for cyber criminals can be pretty vast. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's not just spotty 14-year-old kids working out of their mum's bedrooms. It's professional, it's organized. They've got thousands of employees, and it is, of course, evolving and growing constantly. It's in the UK government cybersecurity breaches survey of 2020 this year. I don't know why I've needed to tell you that's this year. Reported a 46%. Almost half of businesses have reported a cybersecurity breach or attack in the last 12 months. Amongst larger businesses, it was 75%. So you don't want to be one of those larger, more visible targets. And amongst the 46%, more and more are experiencing these issues at least once a week. And 1 in 5 of the 46% faced a material outcome. So that means they actually lost data or money. Then you've got the double whammy. So not just the fact that an organized criminal enterprise is demanding payment of millions in Bitcoins, from encrypting your data and your backups, but that coupled with the fragmentation of where your data actually sits and the huge fines in terms of compliance and regulatory obligations. And it's clear to see, that the potential attack surface is expanding just at a point where your perimeter is dissolving away. And this is why cybersecurity and data management needs to be considered in conjunction with one another. With data management, it's not just how you protect that data, it's how you secure access to it and protect your entire environment. An environment that's got fragmented data spread across multiple silos, within platform as a service, SaaS applications, hyperscalers. It's up and down each of those silos. It's also across multiple locations as well. So if a disgruntled employee suddenly put in a subject access request, or someone exercises a right to be forgotten, do you know where all the copies of that person's personal data reside? Yet alone the different interactions, across many disparate systems. The pandemic's changed the focus, but that regulatory position is still there, and it certainly needs consideration. So what do all these businesses have in common? So we've got Maersk, the global shipping organization, what was the world's leading provider in money transfer services and Travelex, the NHS, our very own here in the UK, Demont, the world's largest provider of hearing aids, FedEx, a global logistics provider, Blackboard, the multi-billion-dollar SaaS provider who served education, healthcare, and charitable sectors, and one of the largest low-cost commercial airlines in the world, EasyJet, and the Police Federation of England and Wales. Actually, I've just spotted the clue in the title slide there up on the left-hand side. So, of course, you would have guessed by now, but the reality is all of these organizations have had or suffered catastrophic cyber attacks resulting in financial losses. Now, in some cases, it's impacted their customers, like Blackboard, where over 20 customers in the education space had their personal and private information compromised. In the case of Travelex, it resulted in them placing themselves in administration as they simply couldn't recover from being offline for over a month. And look at EasyJet. Right now they're on the wrong end of a class action lawsuit after 9 million customers had their data stolen. Not over 1 or 2 days, but over a 4-month period. And this highlights some of the high-profile examples of leading organisations, some with IT budgets in the tens of millions of pounds, possibly higher, being compromised, and the impact of those breaches that they've had. What we don't hear about, are the smaller, low-profile breaches. Apparently, there's one every 45 seconds, according to Security Magazine. But as you can see, no one is immune from attack, and we can see plenty more of these by simply typing the words breach or data loss or cybersecurity into Google, and you'll get story after story, company after company. Essentially everyone is a target. So we've touched on organizations today and the changing landscape, but what type of questions do we need to be asking ourselves to protect as much as possible against becoming one of these statistics? Well, you've obviously evolved and changed to work from anywhere like most of the UK, but have you updated your information security and business policies? Have they changed to support how your people are now working and accessing IT? Have you spent much time thinking about what the impact to your business would be if you suffered a security breach? Today, if you're asked by the board, do you have visibility of your security profile across your entire estate, including patching, virus scanning? Is all of that up to date? How do your internal IT team detect and respond to security events that are going on? And ultimately, as an organization, does that have an impact on your security and compliance obligations that you have? Both to you, your board, and externally to other bodies. And are you investing in training? Do your staff have the appropriate information security and risk management expertise to understand the impact to your organization of a breach? And that last point is probably the biggest. Cybersecurity skills are amongst the most rare and the most scarce at the moment. So just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it couldn't get any more grim, with all these challenges, all these threats, changes in regulatory compliance, all these changes due to the COVID pandemic coming around, and frustratingly, the very people that you need to support your business today and mitigate these risks, who possess the right skills, are the most scarce. And there's also very little unification of security services in this space, with most companies deploying multiple point solutions in terms of antivirus, malware, firewalls, IDS, IPS, etc. So you do need experienced security experts, with a wide knowledge base. Skilling up staff and recruiting takes time. Getting access to those resources also takes time. And also, if you do have the right skills in your team, have you got enough bodies, to run a 24/7 service? To run anything 24/7, you need at least 7 people to cover shifts and holidays, and depending on your organization size, making that kind of investment could be a challenge. And the cyber criminals know that, which is why they often choose to exploit vulnerabilities out of hours when an alert might be missed. And they're not just trying to annoy you, they're trying to get in. And when they do get in, they'll sit there quietly, learning about your systems. And once they're in, they won't be running a piece of scripted software. They'll write their own software, and they'll be waiting until Saturday at 1 o'clock in the morning. Then they'll delete all of your backups, make sure they've gone, encrypt all of your files. And the last thing they'll do, just at the point when they know as much about your IT infrastructure as your own IT team do, that's when they'll send you the bill. So let's take a breather. That was all pretty scary stuff, all doom and gloom. But the good news is that we also know that there's a greater board engagement in cybersecurity now, an acknowledgement that they are vulnerable to attack. And that underpins a trend that businesses are becoming more resilient to attack, thank goodness. So what do we need to be looking at to improve security? So firstly, it's that timing thing. Criminals don't work 9 to 5, so you need your service desk to be manned 24/7 with security experts, or at least consider taking a 24/7 managed security service if you can't. You also have to apply the same set of controls everywhere, as you would on your corporate network, as criminals are taking advantage of the situation where with home working, your traditional network perimeter doesn't exist anymore. Your infrastructure is now stretched all the way from your mobile phone devices through to on-prem systems, through to hosted systems, and then all the way out to Azure, AWS, and SaaS services. So your corporate network's in effect, sitting on a home Wi-Fi like I am now. So, so there's all things that you need to consider. But the one thing we have to be mindful of is at some point, in all likelihood, we are going to be breached. So let's look at what you need to have in place in terms of the tools and services to give you the best chance of keeping them out and defending yourselves. So here are some of the defenses that you should be thinking about and should have in place to protect your business, albeit it's not an exhaustive list. You've got DDoS protection. DDoS attack is a fairly crude form of attack, but one you need to think about. Certainly if you've got a strong online presence to stop volumetric attacks taking you offline. You've then got application defenses, so your WAF effectively. Again, with online services, many of your business interactions are likely to be with applications or internet-facing applications, with vulnerabilities constantly appearing in these application or application stacks. Exploits can pop up overnight, and you may have been perfectly secure yesterday, but today you've got an issue. And there may be an exploit that you know nothing about, and then in they come. And the key point here, though, really is that many attackers now target the application rather than the network. In an ideal scenario, you'll also have intrusion detection and prevention. All next-gen firewalls offer IDS and IPS capabilities and a lot more functionality nowadays. But there's lots of options in this space. Amongst others, we use Cisco, and also a plethora of our customers ingested bits. But what we tend to find is that they're licensed but not configured correctly, or they've only been implemented in passive or detection mode. So you constantly need to check policies and configurations, as you can't assume that you're going to be safe forever. You may spot some of the abnormal traffic or behavior once or after they've got in via one of the many different routes, but it might be too late and you won't spot them every time. Similarly with abnormal access protection, again, you're looking for strange behavior. So you're combining log management with clever AI software like Darktrace. And someone might have a compromised account, and the only way to spot it is spotting that strange behavior that's out of the ordinary. So you also need multi-factor authentication to minimize those risks in the first place. Then you've got malware and ransomware protection. This is obvious and it's a must for every organization. But again, you have to ensure that it's up to date on every single endpoint and every system. In essence, you can build up your defenses, but the threat landscape is constantly evolving. So vulnerability scanning is essential. Vulnerabilities may appear in your organization overnight, so you need to be monitoring your network and your infrastructure 24/7. You may not be able to suddenly patch a system due to version control or an infrastructure change because some piece of software might not work. And therefore, you need to put in place mitigation around this, and it needs to be continuous. So we're always checking open ports, insecure protocols, and crucially, any changes or deviations from normal running services that can indicate that a platform has been compromised. So AI security, AI is becoming a big trend in modern security posture, like dark trace that I mentioned earlier. And that's because it doesn't start from a position of policy or signatures or prevention. AI security is about learning what normal on the network looks like. That means clever software that's analyzing normal behavior and traffic of users and for systems and for servers. And it then raises alerts for any network event, either incoming, outgoing, left to right, that is perceived as anomalous. So very much like your immune system. It's like your white blood cells in your body, in effect. And another huge area is data loss prevention. So this is combination of Windows logs, dark trace, trends, Cisco, all sorts of things pulled together. And you need to be looking, you need to know really if critical information has been touched, either by bad actors getting access, be they criminal enterprises or nation states, or even an inappropriate action from trusted employees. So you can then set preventative policies and be able to enforce these from multiple points within your organization, restricting USB drives and other granular controls and devices, and then tracking sensitive files as they flow through the network and ingress points. And you also need to be able to discover and analyze all your files and endpoints on mail stores, SaaS applications, etc. So, I mean, these are some of the things that you should have in place and should be looking at. But as I say, it's not an exhaustive list. However, if an attacker is determined enough, they will find a way through. As we're seeing nowadays, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when you get attacked. So from our point of view, you need to plan for the worst. Say you come in one morning and your storage is encrypted and your backups have been deleted. What do? How do we go about mitigating the threat and minimizing the impact on your business when it does happen? So these are the key things that you need to be asking yourself before you even react. So how did they get in and when? Have they been in the system for weeks? What did they get access to? Was it customer data or was it more limited? What's been compromised? Could they attack other systems? Was it an old system? Was it a new system? I mean, what investments have been made or could be made to protect the old stuff? In many cases, it's like renovating a house. It's often easier just to rip it all out and start again. I mean, hardwiring security and resilience in from the get-go is easy, right? But retrofitting security into old systems isn't as easy. It's a bit like redecorating or tinkering around the edges of a period property. Either way, you need to protect that data in the right way. Do you have backups? And what's gone? Are they clean? If we store them, are we just putting the problem back into our system? And who do we tell? And what do we tell them? The DPOs amongst us in this session know their obligations to the ICO in terms of notification periods, etc. But what's been done with the IT infrastructure teams to make sure that you have invested in the right things to protect your data once it's held, and not just that consent front end piece? And do you tell customers? Will you make it worse by communicating badly? We've seen many examples of that when it does happen. So these are all things that you need to consider and plan for. And how do you recover from the situation? So if we suffer a ransomware attack, do we pay the ransom? Now, many businesses do pay the ransom. Sadly, 90%, I think, is roughly the figure that do, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get your data back. And you might set yourself up as a known payer on the "they're a payer" list somewhere on the dark web where you've been identified as easy pickings. So attackers may well strike again further down the line. Also consider the impact of the breach in terms of GDPR and payment card industry compliance issues. What type of data was it? Was it personal data? Was it unstructured data with personally identifiable information within it? Has it been stolen or has it been taken off elsewhere? Can you find valid backups? How do you know what data you've got? So there's lots to think about, lots to consider. And that's how we as iomart have been helping organizations, providing them with the tools that they need to interrogate their estates and understand what they've got from a data management, protection and security point of view, and enabling them to mitigate those risks and protect themselves moving forward. So we've looked at the security challenge facing organizations today in terms of the way services are delivered in many different ways and consumed from multiple devices, and how that in turn has created this data fragmentation challenge, and then how that in turn has opened up that threat landscape and increased the surface area of attack. And the changing habits in the way that we're working have almost made it open season for cyber criminals. But if you pull that all together and incorporate all the multi-tiered defenses that I mentioned in my previous slide, then you should get something good that looks like this, you know, a holistic security service with a solid defense, primed and ready for the enemy. Now, of course, iomart does have a service that covers all of these challenges and addresses these threats. However, I did promise you that this wouldn't be a sales pitch. So I'll only explain at a high level how our service, you know, aligns to the current strategies and challenges that we face. And then I'll open it up to the floor and hopefully hear your own experiences and answer, with the help of Ross, an iomart security guru, one of my solutions architects, any questions that you may have. And this diagram shows you know how our managed security service works and the sorts of threats it can deal with. As you can see, simple antivirus is no longer sufficient anymore. You know, the routes into the business are far more numerous than ever before. You need to be aware of any open doors that attackers can use to get in. And you also need to be looking for those changes in activity that indicate that you've been compromised, or a member of staff could be up to no good. And that, you know, that threat landscape is vast, and you won't always know when you've been breached as well. So that led us at iomart to invest heavily in our people, process, technology to deliver what we call our IMS service, our iomart managed security service. What does it do? Well, of course, it protects your business and ensures that your staff are working securely by protecting, detecting and responding to security alerts and risks before they become an issue, and mitigating against exponential cyber threat brought about by those keen to exploit these current times that we work in. It provides 24/7, always on unified security service that's staffed by our UK-based rapid response team. It delivers comprehensive threat detection service. We've already spoken about, you know, remote devices, public cloud, SaaS, platform as a service, private cloud. The IMS platform can encompass all of that. It also defends your business from bad actors, whether that's a disgruntled employee or an external threat. And ultimately, the goal is to reduce your risk profile. Now, whether that's for compliance, ensuring in this world of GDPR that you've taken all the necessary possible steps to protect your business and people's information. It really extends IT security, not just to within the office or the network boundary, but across your entire estate. And the logo shown here indicates some of the technology and vendors that, you know, that we deploy and manage to underpin and help deliver this service. Actually, I should do a quick hat tilt to Mariana at Darktrace, who I know is presenting later this week, and also Hugo and Chris at Cisco as well. I think they're doing a slot on Wednesday. So protection is key, but detection is at the heart of the IMS service. You know, it monitors and detects 24/7, like cyber criminals. It doesn't sleep or take a break. It runs all the time, proactively searching across your entire tech estate in which it's deployed. It can interrogate not just with the services that iomart provide you with today, but it can also ingest your own alerts, antivirus, anti-malware, patch management systems into the platform, so we can look at anomalous events for anything that doesn't look or feel right. Essentially, it's there to enhance, to complement and upgrade your organization's existing IT security approach and posture, and really minimize the window of opportunity for any breach to happen within your network. So what makes IMS so good and so different? Well, a key part of it is our response. You know, the reality is that it's built on best of breed security processes and practice, and it's also got pre-agreed playbooks and remediation. I mean, the team that delivers this are not just security experts, they're infrastructure experts as well, which ensures that, you know, each one of our IMS customers has their own customized security playbook with agreed actions in advance. Probably worth mentioning at this point that we did actually contemplate buying a security business. But as we already had a knock pretty much at every one of our data centers, we've got 3 geographically diverse service desks and multiple security operations centers, not to mention 350 technical staff that know our customers' infrastructure inside out. So they're busy writing run books, recovery playbooks, you know, to recover their systems and data. So it made more sense for us to build up our own. So the service also includes remediation steps agreed in advance, and that's key. With alerting fed into various systems, you know, into iomart systems and externally into your own help desk. And ultimately, it's designed to be delivered in collaboration with your in-house teams. You know, it's there to enhance what you're already doing today and work with you to ensure that when there is an event, that the appropriate actions taken to, you know, shut that down. So in summary, there's no need really to give you a sales pitch, so I'll skip this slide. Essentially, we save you money by improving your security. Actually, the only thing I don't think I have mentioned is that we've integrated this into our global data management service offering as well, to enable organizations to utilize either elements in silos where it makes sense, or utilize a more holistic service, taking advantage of full threat protection and data management across their entire estate. So customers can really take as little or as much as they like, depending on the bandwidth and resources that you've got in-house. So how do you protect your organization? Well, firstly, you need to make security a priority. This means having the appropriate services to protect all aspects of your infrastructure, and monitoring your systems every minute of every day. You know, if you can't do this yourselves, then you would need to consider a managed service. Crucially, you have to plan for a breach. You know, be prepared, not scared. Yeah, and this means understanding what key systems your business needs to keep functioning, keeping offsite an up-to-date copy of your critical data and configuration files for those key services. You need to test your vaulted data to make sure it's not been compromised. And you need to have log files as well, so you can understand if you have been breached, how that breach might have occurred. And you also need to know what you're going to say and who you're going to say it to. So in summary, you know, robust security planning and keeping on top of data management will allow your business to grow in confidence in the good times and survive when things get tough. I should add actually that in partnership with GBI and the CIO Institute, we are inviting prospective customers to experience or test drive the service themselves by running a proof of value across their estate of our IM service. Alternatively, you can simply take advantage of our free vulnerability scan offer. Obviously, you can't click on this slide like it says there. Paula will kindly drop a link into the chat for those of you that in this session that you're welcome to use. Or indeed, we're happy to schedule a one-to-one follow-up session with one of our security experts like Ross. So thank you for listening, and I hope that in sharing my thoughts, I've not sent anyone into too much of a spin. You remember, the important thing is be prepared, not scared. So if anyone does have any questions, please come off mute, and Ross and I will be happy to answer any questions from our perspective, obviously. And if we don't have time for your question, then feel free to request to speak to us or one of my team in the iomart room on the platform this week. How are we doing for time-wise, Paula? Have I gone over?
Yeah, we've just run out of time, Alan, but I have made a note of everyone's questions and I'll pass that over to Alan and Ross for them to answer those for you. And I've popped that link into the chat there so everyone has access to that, but we'll also follow up so you have that link after the session. But I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Alan. It was a great presentation and we've had a lot of engagement via the chat, so I'll send that over to you. And everyone, the next session will take place in 15 minutes, and that's the USP of information security from the former CISO of Clear Channel International. But again, a massive thank you to you, Alan, and our partner, iomart.
Cool. My pleasure, Paula. Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.